And then you turn here at Metaurus, opens up with the Romans continuing to march up the hill or making another attempt to do so. And they broke through a couple of the Iberians that were sitting at the top. Then we had a continuation, which again, Bowstar back here ended up trying to trump in on, failed, and well, that resulted just in a little bit of rallying. There really wasn't much the leader could do. And then the Carthaginians launched an attack on the rear of some of this cav. They couldn't get out of the way. It was blocked by the unit it was attacking. And they were routed, of course. I guess we'll continue moving on with the rest of the Roman leaders for the most part. And the Romans did sort of a double time, pushing their forces up this hill extra fast. And no real hurry to this, but they smashed the Celts. Mainly get them off the board as quickly as possible, allow this force to start wheeling a little faster. It's not going to make much difference. I think the Carthaginians are going to break either way, but this definitely, sending another 20 points of tactical quality flying is definitely going to end the game this turn, I think. And, I mean, the double time, hey, it costs an extra point of tactical quality to all your units. But if you're getting rid of the enemy quickly and allowing something like this to actually move in an effective way afterwards, which you couldn't do before, it couldn't pivot with those Celts there. It had, and almost as important, or at least as importantly, with the Romans sitting there as well. They couldn't just march through the Romans as easily. Not with this dense terrain and the heavy formation that the Romans have for this. Alright, well, we still got some more Romans to move up the center and maybe over here on the left flank somewhere. Mago's heavies launched a massive assault in the center, and in some places just thumped into the Roman line and gave as well as they took. But up here they drove a couple of the Roman units routing and moved forward, and there's actually a fair line here. They got a flank attack here that didn't really go anywhere. Then Mago fell back and rallied a few of his units. It looks kind of promising, those heavies holding out like that, and the mediums up on the hill are doing okay, but this entire Celtic flank is just disintegrating. And the historical result was for Nero to countermarch across the field and bring another legion into play. With this, he's probably going to get that other legion into play just as quickly by wheeling and bringing it along the flank of the heavies, and with a lot more effect. Well, I started the turns clean up all the way over here, and everything looked pretty good, but then when I got down here, I started seeing how many of the Celts were routing off the map, or close enough that it didn't matter. We're looking at like 60 points that ran off the map this turn, and maybe another 25, 30 that are heading very soon. The 60 points is well enough to throw us over the edge. So I stopped my cleanup. This is not a consistent situation if we had been hitting the next turn. One thing I wanted to show, though, with the Roman line trying to turn, kind of failed. The guy got left behind here. The guy's facing in the wrong direction. It's tough to wheel. I was hoping for a momentum, take some tactical quality hits to spin around and try to form that line up. That thing probably wouldn't be getting into combat anytime in the near future, even if the battle was lasting. Interesting operations happening down here, though, where the heavies actually started to give their own, and this, always with that good terrain with such a static positioning, really hard to push them off that hill. In the end, though, whatever you look at with the Celts, with the bad roll or the historical result in terms of their effectiveness or drunkenness or whatever, you end up in a situation that is really unwinnable. With the Celts there, if you ignore them, well, they can't do anything, which is historically what more or less happened. They got marched away from. But it doesn't matter whether you hit them either. Hitting them makes them just scatter. They break. And it's not like here's the problem. I'm almost considering that the Celts shouldn't count towards the Carthaginian victory conditions, because scattering them, if they were, yeah. See, I mean, if you have troops on the board and they run, that's going to affect things no matter what. What I'm thinking was, if they're drunk and it's known that they're unreliable, that would be bad. But, they're a part of your defensive line. Seeing them break is going to affect the entire army morale. It wouldn't affect it as much as equivalent quality units, though, breaking somewhere else. They'd be seen as lesser units than, say, the Italian allies who were in the center, just because it's known that they're not really in battle-ready situation at this point. But, what can you do? Anyway, as it stands, it comes down to this one die roll, or if you play the historical situation. Either way, you don't particularly have any reason that you have to pay much attention to those Celts unless the die roll goes in the Carthaginians' favor there. And, they could be fully operational. If they're fully operational, how big a deal is that? Not terribly. I don't think those Celts would have done that much better had they not had all these bone rolls. They would have launched that first attack in a full wave. That would have been somewhat effective. They wouldn't have disintegrated quite as quickly, but we see how quickly the center medium infantry kind of disintegrated, which was in, better shape than they were. And that's over here. It's the heavies that held out well, and the guys with the tremendous terrain up here. Alright, I guess I'm going to load this one up, because what else can I do?